Thank you very much, Gerald and Vince. And now we're going to move on to the featured poets, first of our featured poets. Delighted that we have John Hurley as our one of our featured poets this afternoon. John has had two novels published by Pen Press, but he's here in his guise as a poet this afternoon. He was born in Cork. He left school at 14, moved to England when he was 17, and these days he's a regular reader at various poetry events, including Wimbledon Library, Hammersmith Irish Culture Club, and Poetry at 3, and of course he's been to Dodo Modern Poets several times where he's read from the floor. He lives in Ealing. He's also he's a member of the Pitshanger Poets, so very active in poetry, published novelist, great voice, great writer. Please welcome, the first time as a featured poet at Dodo Modern Poets, the great John Hurley.
I'd like you to try to remember your first kiss, because I remember mine. Her daddy was a wealthy man, acquisitions, then lots of sackings. But I came from a lower caste with social graces lacking. Maria was a lovely girl, good manners, middle class. She had not a lot in common with you who cut the grass. And yet she smoked my woodbines. Mam and Dad were often absent with the busy lives they led. I never called her by her name. It was usually just Miss. But one evening in a thunderstorm, I stole a naughty kiss. During lightning and torrential rain, she was a frightened lass, and she never even slapped my face, said, "Just stick to cutting grass." So quickly I was disabused of all my silly notions. People with her background have a great grip on their emotions. The tempest was the trigger. My behaviour was quite crass. But then she had clung to me like bad luck to a tinker's ass. 30 years ago, I went through a bad period in my life. So this is another time. Blackberries hung in clusters that September. We filled 2 bowls before the fading of the light. Walked familiar paths with such closeness. Hands stained from picking nature's bounty. Fingers abiding rapier-like thorns. Vainly attempting to reset the clock of time. She spoke of women's struggles. Her ancestors picking berries while suckling a child. Their role in moving men from caves. Evolving and getting closer to breaking the glass ceiling. Bestowing their latent talents. And her daughters on the threshold of equality. The luscious fruit did not fit her creative needs. The fates had other things decreed. Thank you. It was raining the other evening, about a week past the couple, and on my way home, I call this homeless. The rain was lashing down last evening as I walked past a homeless man. I did not step outside my bubble. Someone else must take the can. His beard and hair were dripping moisture. A face a network of deep lines. Did he know I had a compassion bypass as his outstretched hands received some kinds? I hurried on to warmth and comfort, my conscience salved by this parting gift. Onus on others to find answers to our society's greatest rift. I have no answers to Cardboard City and growing masses outside the fold, or the fault line between wealth and ghettos, and human beings left out in the cold. Long time ago in another country, man sought a room for his pregnant wife. Even then there was housing pressure. No room at the inn in another life. Thank you. A couple of weeks back, I stood on the pier in my native village, and it was after Storm Alley. They give names to every storm, as you know now. All storms have a name. This was my village at nightfall. Porridge-coloured sea after last night's storm, sullen and brooding as if missing mayhem. Seagulls swoop, wheel and complain before landing on the kelp-strewn rocks. There they are hypnotized by seaweed fronds that twist to the rhythm of the lapping waves. All the time, the foam-flecked oceans swell, advancing and receding, seeking to buy chunks from the land, sulking at its lack of progress, having to be content with the slow erosion, still knowing of eventual success. A truant rave escaped the setting sun, and in the creeping sea mists helped the approaching darkness. I was very, very fond of this old gentleman. He was my uncle, and he's been dead for many years, but I still think about him. Uncle Jack. His milk kept cool before we had fridges, submerged in a stream by his back door. Salt, air and damp, and an old smoky lamp, and a layer of dust on his flagstone floor. He sat on his chair with the peat fire glowing, deep in the flames of the distant past. Night shadows falling, a lone cuddler crawling, rattling snakes on his roof in the winter blast. He wore a ragged old cap with the lining showing, his cheeks like raw liver and his nose azure blue, and the dark wine of our nation was his nightly libation, gave his moustache a rich golden hue. A bowl of cold water on his kitchen table, a fly-speckled old mirror that he had found. These were the solutions to his scanty ablutions as he stropped his razor with a ringing sound. A shiny patch by his waistcoat pocket, probing fingers searched for his tobacco plug, tamped deep in the bowl, lit with glowing coal, then loud slurps of tea from an old cracked mug. A calm acceptance of his lifestyle. The man who'd known bought giant tears. With very few needs, he fingered his beads and waited for God in his latter years. And the last one is, I think you've all had experience of something like this, but I was a little bit foolish a few weeks back. It's called salvation. I was shredding lettuce in the kitchen, and a man with a Bible rang the bell. I invited him in for morning coffee. He said, "You're on the road to hell." Beads of sweat on his forehead. "Armageddon," he said, "is close and evil's rife." He reads me a passage from the good book and says, "You're just whitewashing your life." I chopped red peppers for a salad, hoped he would go or just shut up. Then I changed my mind and stupidly refilled his coffee cup. He said, "You're lucky meeting me. You can be saved if I'm permitted. You can be among the chosen few, as not all will be admitted. Well, I'm not a fan of elite clubs. I prefer to throw the circle wide. Surely the man who is up there could pack a few more inside. When I took up this new position, he gave me such a dirty look, put his cup back on the saucer, and rather sadly closed his book. Thank you for your time.